Good morning. It's good to see everybody this morning. Seemed like we're a little patchy this morning. Is that the right word? I was going to say a little slim, but didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Oh, that probably wouldn't hurt anybody if you called them slim, would it? Okay. If we had a lot of people and I said we're a little thick today, then that might be different. All right, going through the series, The Devil, Sin, and Hell. We are still in Lesson 4. Now this one's not working. They're crazy. Last week we finished up, or the week before we finished up, talking about the devil, our adversary, our enemy, our mortal, our spiritual enemy, the devil. And we moved on to this part of the series on sin. We defined sin as disobedience. Disobedience to God's law. We talked at length about the Greek word for sin. We've learned this from a long time ago. Miss the mark. Trying to hit the bullseye. We said we could go short, we can go long. Go to the left. We can go to the right. Maybe. May be fun today. We may not get through Barry's sermon. I saw he had a lot of slides back there. He may be wearing his finger out. Anyway, we went back to the old clicker because the new one wasn't working. I don't know that it's the clicker's fault. I don't know what the deal is. But anyway, sin, missing the mark. Okay? This is really bugging me. Whatsoever is not of faith is I think I'm going to take it off if it's not going to work. But anyway, whatsoever is not of faith is sin. We learned that from Romans 14:23. The next question was all unrighteousness is sin. 1 John 5:17. That brings us to where we concluded. I'm going to see if try it one more time, see if it'll work. Gail can hear it going click, 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 and it picks up about every third one. All right, number 33. Satan or the devil tempts a few, some, all men. Tempts all men. Here we go. Try it again. Look at that. Just have to concentrate real hard. James chapter 1 verse 14. Let's turn there. James chapter 1. It's almost like they did these next two, this question and the next question out of order. But we're going to start with this one in verse 14. But every man is tempted. And when does that happen? When he is drawn away from his own lust and enticed. Okay? I think that's the key to what we want to talk about. Being drawn away from what or from who? Okay, being drawn away from God, right? Or God's teachings. Being pulled away. Enticed. That's an interesting word. Enticed. Yeah. I think that's exactly what it's come. It's lured. Yeah, baited. Okay? I want to point out the devil knows what's going to work on us, doesn't he? He knows let's call it our weaknesses. From the beginning, he was that way. Our introduction to the devil was in the garden, Genesis chapter 3. What's taking place in Genesis chapter 3 when we're introduced to the devil? He's in the garden with Eve. Yeah. He comes to her. Do you think that he starts questioning, just random questions, however, whatever he was thinking of? Or do you think that maybe beforehand, even though we're not told that, Eve had been pondering those questions already? Boy, look at this. Boy, it sure seems a waste to not be able to get to eat this food, this fruit. Just out of the blue, that's the direction he goes. I don't think that that's the case. I don't have any proof of that, but I'm pretty sure, if I think about it, Eve had been thinking about, why is God not letting us eat of this food, this fruit? It just didn't come out of the blue. And so when the devil approaches her in the form of a serpent, that's where he hits, isn't it? That's where he attacks. And I think we can look at it and we can see that he does this, and I've found 3, maybe you can think of some other ways. I think he does this enticement or this baiting or the luring that he does. I think he does it in 3 avenues, 3 ways. And we see that he does this, 2 of those, if we look at it, when he's having this conversation with Eve. I think he does this one way by argument. Makes us, we kind of go back and forth in our head. Well, maybe, it's probably all right. Maybe it's, And so there's this argument that's going back and forth. What did he do with Eve that was an argument? Genesis chapter 3, his conversation. What was the argument with Eve? Yeah. I mean, ultimately, that's it. God didn't really mean what he said. He made her question, didn't he, what God had said. Made her question what God had said. Yeah. Yeah, John's probably right. Or maybe she just wasn't convinced of it the way that she should have been convinced of it. There wasn't a whole lot of... We're told that they were to... replenish is not the word because it's never been plenished to start, whatever plenish means. But they were supposed to fill the earth, right? That was one commandment. They were to keep and dress the garden. That was another commandment. And the other commandment was, you can eat anything you want, just don't eat of this one tree. That's not a whole lot of commandments. But there was some questioning, or there was some... I don't know John, that I can fully say that they didn't know. But I would say that she wasn't convinced enough.
She added to the word. She said, because he said, least you touch it or you die. She added that.
She added that to what we are told that she was told. Correct. And to me, that seems to add that part. That's kind of childish, isn't it? It's definitely immature. If she hadn't been told that, and we don't have any indication that she was, but we don't have everything that was ever written, that they were told, written down for us. But we can't eat of it. We can't even touch it. You know, that kind of resonates in my head of that's the attitude. Can you believe that? We can't eat it. We can't even touch it. Right. And so then as you look down, we see the rest of that story. What is one of the things that Satan, that the devil hit on? You're going to be like God. You don't like His authority, so you can become your own authority. So that's what I'm saying. There's all this going on. The devil knows our weaknesses. That's where he's going to get to. And he starts this argument, and I don't mean it's like you're up in each other's face argument. It's just this questioning of what you know or what you think you know, and you try to rationalize it. And that's that argument that's going back and forth, John. Sure seems that way. Number two, he entices us or lures us with, number one was argument. Number two is flattery. With flattery. You're going to be like a god. She looked at it and she saw that it was good to eat. It was enticing. But that authority part of it that we've talked about, you're going to be like God. Well, God really didn't mean what He wanted, what He said, or we try to twist it. That's the argument part of it. And then it's appealing because it's going to make me feel better about myself. It's going to make me look better. It's going to make me, it's about me, right? Pride, selfishness. So argument, flattery. Then we go to the wilderness. Jesus being tempted. What's another way? Can anybody think what I offer something of value? So argument, make you question what you know or what you think you know. Flattery. And then there's some kind of offer of value. What did the devil offer? If you'll bow down, all this can be yours. Is that kind of the same thing? And we've talked about it before. The lust of the flesh, the lust of the eye, the pride of life. But the devil knows our weaknesses, doesn't he? He knows right where to go. Try to pick it out. And I even look at that. Jesus compared to us, let me say that. That's that disclaimer. Compared to us, didn't have any weaknesses, did He? But He was on earth human and had those same issues that we have. That potentially could be a weakness. Was Jesus tempted? It says He was tempted. But He exactly right. So my point of where I was trying to get to was He had been in the wilderness how many days? It says he hadn't ate. What's the first temptation that the devil tried to get him with? With food. He knows our weaknesses. We've got to be on guard. He walks around as a roaring lion.
But then again, Christ had to have some type of power that we don't. Because I guarantee you, if you go 40 days without eating, you're not going to be in good shape.
Yeah, and I don't understand all that either, but I do know this. He had to be 100% human to experience everything the exact same way that we experience it, or the second part of that, him being the perfect sacrifice, doesn't work. If he had been given at that point special powers, he could perform miracles. John, you're absolutely right. There are things that he was able to do that we can't do. But let's not take away from let's don't get into he had a special gift or power that when the devil offered him these things, he was just able to shrug it off and it wasn't any big deal. That is not the case. I know that's not what you're saying. But let's don't if we can experience it as a human, he did. With one exception, he never sinned. And that's a question.
I'm not saying you were 40 days hungry.
Yeah. I just don't. And you're absolutely right. There are things that we just were not told how that happened. We take it on faith, don't we? That what the Bible says is what the Bible says, and that's what the Bible means, and that's what God wants, and that's God's will. Yeah. Look at that first click. Go back to verse 13. Who tempts no man? God tempts no man. Oh, whoa, wait just a minute. Tammy, Genesis chapter 22, verse 1. Whoa, what? My ears are. What did you? James says God tempts no man. And Tammy, if I heard you right, it said God, the next word is tempted, and then Abraham, right? God tempted Abraham. But James says God tempts no man. Is that a contradiction? Okay. But I will tell you that if you go through and look, Gail said her version, New King James, by the way, right? Because I read it too. New King James says tested. So I was glad you didn't read from. We understand what it's talking about. But how do we explain that to somebody that's trying to nitpick? Maybe that's not even the right word. Trying to undermine. That's a better word. Trying to undermine the Scriptures. God tempts no man, but Genesis chapter 22 verse 1 says, in 3 words, God tempted Abraham. How do we reconcile that? And Gail said her translation said tested. If you go through and look at that word, I can see that, and that's a good way to explain it. But it's the same word. It's the same word. The devil was testing Eve. The devil was testing Jesus. but we say tempt and test. So there's a difference there that goes beyond just a little bit what the translation is, okay? And I tried to write the word down. Let me see if I can find it. So you can, if you're into that thing. The Old Testament is nasah, N-A-S-A-H, to prove or try. To prove or try. And in the New Testament, I'm going to try this. Pyradzo is the Greek word, and that's to test or prove. So what's the difference? The devil tempts, God tests. Okay. All right. And that's the correct path. Desires, lust. The devil tempts us to sin, to do evil. God tests us to do what? Make us stronger. Give us the opportunity to prove. That's what Abraham, with Isaac, when he did, the Bible says, sacrifice Isaac. Job, yes, he did. Oh, yes, he did. He didn't kill him, but he sacrificed him, John. It says it right there. In his mind, he had already given him up. He didn't kill him, but he sacrificed him. Job. Was Job tested? Okay. Who was doing that? Okay. So here's the other side of that. All this is the devil's doing what he's doing. God's allowing it, isn't He? God could speak it. God could, however God wanted to do it, and make it impossible for Satan, for the devil to do any of this. God is allowing. He's giving him that small amount of power. But it has to do with our choice, right? God's not forcing us to obey Him. God's not forcing us to follow Him, to obey, to love Him. We have free will, don't we? So God's righteousness prevents Him from having part with, we talked about this the last couple of weeks maybe. God can't have any part with what? Because of His nature. Sin. Logically, if God can't have part in sin, how could He possibly tempt us to sin? His righteousness would not allow it. But He gave us free will, and He also allows the devil to have this power to be able to tempt us. Okay? Yeah. And I think that's probably a perfect way to say it. It's about motives. What's God's motive with testing? Okay? To strengthen, to make stronger, right? What's the devil's motivation for tempting? Trying to have us be with Him forever in hell, right? That's the motivation. All right. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13. Donna, are you there? 1 Corinthians 10:13. We could spend weeks right here. And we could get into that, almost that predestination talk. Okay? And by that I mean, God knows, so it's not valid because God's making it happen, because God knows the future all the way to the end of time. And so your actions, your choices and decisions are not valid because God's going to make it happen whether you want it to happen or not. I twist myself in a circle there, but do you understand what I'm talking about? And so people can twist this around that, well, God's going to do this, but He's not going to push you far enough. I don't think that's what it's saying. I think what it's saying is here, there is always going to be a way for you to handle, deal with a situation that comes up without sinning. That's what it's saying. Are you necessarily going to like it, or is it going to be uncomfortable, or very well could. But do you have to sin? Whatever situation you got yourself into, and I've got that somewhere down here. I'll find it. Whatever situation that you find yourself in, maybe that's a better way to say it. How can you get out of it? Do you have to sin in order to get out of it? Yeah. John said you could pull up your big boy pants, but you could. We're Christians, right? And I thought about this when I was going through this. Just kind of struck me. I don't even know where, maybe this is a tangent. Boy, he's a good Christian man. You ever heard somebody say that? Speaking about somebody, he's a good Christian man. Is there any reason to put the word good in there? Is there such a thing as a bad Christian man? If you're bad, if somebody said they're a bad Christian man or woman or whatever, they're not Christian, are they? Okay. What's Christian mean? Christ-like. Can you be Christ-like bad? No. Oh, 100%. And that's why I said, why do we need good in front of that to describe it? Maybe that was a tangent off somewhere else. But I think it has some bearing on what I'm talking about here. This way of escape, if we're grounded in the Scriptures, if we're studying, if we're in prayer, if we're doing all those things in that bullseye we wrote on there, walking in the light, the way of escape, are we going to be able to find it? Or maybe we find it easier, maybe not the right word to use. There's always going to be, I think what it's talking about is, there's always going to be a way to handle and deal with that situation. Situation is probably not a good word either. That whatever it is that comes up, we're going to be able to do that without sinning. We can't use excuses like, they made me do it. I'll tell you how old I am. Probably not. I'll just say this. There was a comedian on TV when I was a kid, and he had a sketch. This is kind of a sketch comedy show. and the devil made me do it. You all remember that? I know his name. If you want to know what his name was afterwards, I'll tell you what his name was. The devil made me do it. They made me do it. I couldn't help it. Those are just excuses, aren't they? Because God tells us that we don't have to. That nobody's making us. We have a free will. Just like we have the free will to choose to obey Him, that same free will gives us the ability to not obey Him as well. Look at that. It works every time now. Yeah. And I think that's where we get into, we allow... No, it doesn't work again. There we go. Romans 3:23. For all have sinned and come short of what? The honor, the glory, the approval of God, the approval that God bestows on us. Let's do 36. All men have sinned except who? Jesus didn't sin, did He? That was Hebrews 4:15. Christ was sin in the likeness of sinful flesh. The likeness of sinful flesh. But that doesn't mean that He sinned. He was tempted in the same manner as we are. We've talked about that. Matthew chapter 4. And because of that, He's able to help us, sympathize. Hebrews, what did I write? Hebrews 2:18, I think it uses the word succor. That's a word we don't use much anymore. It means to help. Okay? All right, we'll finish up this sheet. Maybe start on the next sheet next week. Appreciate your attention. Maybe we'll get our